I thought for a while before making this video, but I was very compelled to do so. This is gonna be a different style of video. Usually, I have my screen pulled up and explaining tactics, methods, whatever. But I want to make this video to give you more of an insight as far as how I started, where I'm at today, where I plan on going in the future. I don't have this scripted. This is just right off the top of my head. So bear with me as we go through multiple different thought processes into different areas. It all started when I was a painter. And when I was painting, I remember very clearly that I did not enjoy waking up to go perform work for a company and work nonstop. And something clicked in my head one day when I was painting. I decided to look at myself as far as from like a third person perspective, and I seen as far as what the paint debris and all of these things, like my environment was doing to me. And I realized right then and there that that was not a place I want to continue in life. So I remember one day after I got done spraying some doors for a painting company, I literally looked down at my pants and it was full of all this debris and all this stuff, and I just said, you know what, I'm out. And it was at that point where I truly never looked back. I jumped from that painting career directly into selling credit card processing machines, and it was the first entrepreneur route that I went, and I remember failing so badly. I set up the phones, I figured out what a lead list was, and I literally drove around in my car. I went up to gas stations and I tried to convince them to switch out their credit card processing machine with one that I was hired to sell. And when I say hired, I don't mean as far as I was an employee. I was an independent contractor, so if I sold it, they would send out the material and they would set it up and do all of that. And I remember, as far as a sense of freedom in a way, even though that I was getting, a paycheck from the painting company, I believe it was around like $750 a week, which, whatever that adds up to, around like 3,000 or so. And even though I was making no money, I still felt this sense of freedom. And that sense of freedom later translated into how I position myself in the future. And when I position myself in the future with this entrepreneurial mindset that I later discovered, I didn't know it at the time. I just knew I wanted to do things on my own term. I didn't want to have someone cut me a paycheck. So fast forward a couple of months, it wasn't working out at all. I was driving around. I got rejected nonstop. And I decided to pursue a different route. I jumped into ADT security, selling door to door for new homeowners. And I was an independent contractor through them as well. And I remember right when I first started, there's tangible results that I seen through, some of the office leaders and some of the sales reps. And they told me I could make $500 a day. And I was very skeptical at first as far as $500 a day, because I was making $750 a week So it didn't make much sense to me on how that would even be remotely possible. Fast forward, I ended up landing this so-called job slash independent contracting position. And my very first day, I went out and I was shadowed by another individual. And he showed me the ropes as far as, this is how it's done, this is the material, etc. And they gave me this material, and I started to understand as far as, okay, these people are following what's called a script, and they're following these different procedures and all of these things. And they had a sales slick, like a shiny, a laminated business card kind of, but a lot larger. And going from door to door with this slick, I started to understand that I'm trading the opportunities that are literally in front of my face. So I learned about market demand. And market demand was that there was new homeowners to an area, and their pitch was, since they are a new homeowner, they're more likely to need security systems because they're brand new to the area and they don't understand psychological what's happening in that area. So it was a very well-placed service. And this is where I really learned my sales abilities as far as my frameworks and everything that I've learned as far as ERT, like empathy, rapport, tie down. I still use it to this day. And when you empathize with the customer, keep in mind, I'm in Minnesota as well, so it's very cold here. So we used to have to walk around in the winter, knock on doors in the freezing cold, and figure out a strategic way to pitch someone at their doorstep in order to do what's called a home vulnerability assessment. And a home vulnerability assessment essentially is going around the perimeters of the house and locating all of the unsecure areas and then providing equipment for those unsecure areas. And my very first day out alone by myself, something very coincidental, a lot of people will call it, but I call it more as far as the unction, or others will relate it to synchronicity, or as far as how the world actually works. Oddly enough, right when I get done saying those words, I decide to pause the video and then I get a phone call. So if you understand as far as how these things operate and how these things work, you'll have a different perspective of life. But let me continue with the story. So my very first day out by myself selling ADT security, I remember knocking on doors all day during, as far as like the time span of 1 p.m. all the way to about 8 p.m. And it wasn't until I landed at about 6 p.m. that I noticed something very unusual. One of the houses that I happened to approach, I noticed there was a key inside of the door. And I seen that, I took a mental note of that, and I knocked, but no one answered. And obviously I'm not going to turn a key into someone's house. So I left, and I made a mental note, and I came back to it later that night. It so happened to be that key in that door literally was my first sale in ADT security. Now, I know that may seem very far-fetched or whatever it is, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the honest truth here. I didn't notice as far as that key, as far as the actual symbolism behind that, until later on in the future, as far as it's literally like opening a door and it's a key of an opportunity. But fast forward, yeah, I sold that client on my first day on the job, and I remember posting into one of the accountability groups, and I said, hey, I got my first sale, first day. Everyone was stoked. They were super proud, and it gave me this sense of relief because I knew I was going to not only get paid my $500 for selling the security system, But I started to look at sales in a different manner, and I started to understand that your time isn't necessarily associated with the amount of money that you can create. So fast forward from that point, I ended up doing decent at this security company, and at the time I was 19 years old. I ended up meeting a buddy named Matt, and he's inside of the Skool community if anyone's in there. And when I met Matt, it was very fascinating because Matt, we clicked right off the bat. And since we clicked, I was actually his shadow as far as going out there into the ADT world, onto the streets, and teaching him how to sell security systems. It so happened to be that Matt got very wealthy / successful off online ventures prior to joining ADT, and that's the reason why he did, because things went south. And I ended up talking to Matt about as far as what he used to do, and he told me he had this website. I'm not going to drop the website's name just because it's still around, but this website was a very big key indicator, hence the door, key indicator of where my life would lead up to this point today. So I ended up talking to Matt, and he told me, as far as he has this website that he wants me to manage and he wants me to look after. I never really monkeyed around with websites at that point, but I did have a technical background from when I was little. I used to, mod computers and, Xboxes and things like that. So I figured I would give it a go. And I decided to give it a go. And I happened to run this community, and it actually had 100,000 members inside of it. So I went from selling security systems, jumping into this online platform world, not knowing absolutely anything at all, like email marketing, all the technical stuff as far as, redesigning, rebuilding. And especially when it comes to like a functionality platform, it's completely different versus like a small local business website. These things are very complex. So the website was super out of date, super old. And I was in charge of essentially breathing life into this thing. So I played around with the community for about 6 months, and it was gaining a bit of traction here and there. But I realized the industry, the niche that I was in, was not going to bring me to where I needed to go, because I was making a lot more money at ADT than this community. So I decided to put the brakes on it. And that's what led me into my next venture with Matt at a lighting company. And we're selling commercial lighting. So I utilized the same skill sets that I had previously at ADT at this lighting company. And they didn't have a very good technical team at all. So this was my first introduction into CRMs and automations. In the CRMs and automations, I was in charge of setting up the entire, workforce and everything like that, and I didn't get paid $1 for it. So it was a learning experience, though. I'm glad I did it. But I started to actually go around in the lighting industry and doing the same thing, but for business owners. So instead of knocking on, residential homes, I'm knocking on business doors. I'm walking in there and presenting myself. And this is where I had a major mind shift, because I went from selling residential to commercial, and business owners, they have a lot more money than residential. So it unlocked my ability and my capacity to understand what I needed to do at that point. So selling these commercial lighting, I remember I sold a gig for, it was my highest paying job at the time. It was $35,000 around to replace all the fixtures in this establishment. So I sold a $35,000 job, and I remember going back to the office. I was super pumped and everything. And it so happened to be that there was a salesperson that made contact with the individual previously, like I think it was 6 months or something ago prior, but he never got around to actually closing the deal, following up, or doing anything like that. So by happenstance, I closed his lead that was, later registered in the CRM that I created. And I got in a big dispute with the actual owner and the sales rep. So I ended up walking off the job and pretty much telling myself, like, you know what, I'm never going to rely on someone cutting me a paycheck, even if it's commission for sales, again. So this what brought me down the rabbit hole as far as going back into the online community world, really trying to give this website another swing, and I struck out. Now I had absolutely no money to my name. I was dead broke, and I had no clue what to do next. So I said, okay, well, I know some of the skill sets that I have from the platform that I was on previously. So what if I try to create another community? But this time, instead of trying to manage the community, what if I actually start to build communities for others? So this is what led me down to Fiverr. And Fiverr, it was in June when I first started, around when I was 20 years old. And on Fiverr, I actually landed my first paying gig, and it wasn't even for a community. It was for a Shopify store. It was during like, the mask mandates and everything like that. I'm not gonna get into specifics on the words. You know what it is. So I sold my first website for $50. And selling that website for $50 was the best thing that ever happened to me, as far as financially, as far as business wise. That $50 later catapulted into doubling, tripling, quadrupling. So I went from 50 to 100 to 200 to 400 to 800 to 1600, all off Fiverr. And it wasn't until I created a community-based platform for two different very big companies, and one of them, the first one, I sold for $9,000. So imagine my mindset at this time, from selling a $50 website to prior selling a $500 security system to selling a $30,000 lighting job and receiving commission off that, to now jumping into the online world and going from $50 to $9,000. So my mindset was completely untapped at that point, and I really didn't understand what was happening, but I knew something was working. And you always hear everyone say, "I want to make money online." And how many of us have jumped onto Google and said, "How do I make money online?" Or go on YouTube, "How do I make money online?" And spend countless hours researching and just hearing a bunch of fluff. Like, just people saying they know how to do this, but there's never no tangible proof behind it. And, they're all just copying and pasting the same exact methods from other people and recreating videos and doing all these things. Is garbage. So with that mindset in place, I want to break down this story very chronological for you, so you could understand the actual journey that I did go through, and how I started, and how I was in your shoes at one point at my very beginning, prior to even getting into the online world. But sales, and then slowly becoming an entrepreneur, failing multiple times, and looking back, that $9,000 was nowhere near as important as the $50 sale. So with all that being said, I look at myself as far as today from when I first started, and the way that I process information, the way I think through things, it is completely different. Like, completely different at that point. So I just wanted to let you guys know, as far as, you that are first starting out here, like being genuine directly to you, that you do have what it takes. You just have to keep pressing. And I wish I knew this at the time, as far as learning to keep pressing. I mean, like I said, I quit multiple times at a lot of different things, but I always kept progressing in some way. But that ability to recognize the difficulty in situations and embrace the light out of it is what separates a poor mindset from a rich mindset. It truly is. It's the conflict, it's the difficulty, it's the intricacies of having the difficulties laid right on in front of you. There's this image that's out there, you've probably seen it, of a guy swinging an axe against a cave, and there's diamonds right behind it. All it takes is one more swing for all the diamonds to fall through. And we all get to that last swing and we decide to put down the axe when all it took was one more swing. And really thinking through this, I wish a lot of people understood what it takes. It takes a lot. If you want to separate yourself and you want to be different from others, you have to do more than others. It's just it's just a simple principle. You have to. A lot of people say they're willing to do whatever it takes. But if you really ask yourself, are you willing to do whatever it takes? And the way you can measure that is based off the burning desire that you have off set outcome or set achievement or set goal. If your burning desire is so powerful that you can wake up and roll out of bed, and you doesn't even matter if you make money that day or that week, that month, it doesn't even matter. You know you're going to do it. You have your mindset locked. All these people tell you all the time, you can't simply do this. You need to go, a different route. You need to go the easy route. Go get a job, do these things. It works hand in hand, because those same exact individuals, they don't want to see you succeed to the point where they no longer have someone that they can relate to, essentially. And even if people don't know this consciously, they know this subconsciously, that they want others to be like them. And if someone's not like them, they do everything in their power to make sure that they can block them from doing so. Now, there's a lot of different kind of philosophies and things of why that actually does occur. But I mean, energy is real at the end of the day. If you understand energy, you know exactly that. There's dark forces in this world and there's light forces in this world. So it's up to you as far as what mindset you actually do want to tap into and be able to contribute down that path. Now, I know this conversation has went a lot of different ways as far as, my thought process and, how I'm thinking here. But I really want to make this video to solidify the reason why you should keep swinging that axe. And I want to make the video as far as to show you guys the persistence that it actually does take. There's no get rich quick scheme. There's nothing like that. The closest thing you can possibly get to that is some form of mentorship where someone has knowledge and information of, actual viable methods that you do not have yet, that you have not acquired because you have not went through enough trial and error. That's really it. There's no other secret behind it. Now, I spent 4 years plus mastering websites, mastering web designs. All I've done. I've done nothing else. I've did the community building at first, but once I got my first client, as far as that was actually a small business owner, I took off with that. And I've been doing this for 4 years. So I didn't even want to get on YouTube. I didn't want to start making these videos. I didn't want to do any of this stuff for any of you guys until I knew what I was talking about, truly. A lot of people, they'll be in the space for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, even a year, 2 years, whatever it is. You don't truly master a craft at anything without enough trial and error. there's so many different copy and paste methods out there. As far as, there's people out there telling you, hey, cold outreach, do this, and start this, cold email, cold call, do this and do that. It couldn't be further from the truth. Cold calling is a viable alternative if you're first starting in something and you literally have nothing else to work off. But developing an influx of leads, and when I say influx of leads, I'm talking about people to sell to. And your main objective should not be to pick up the phone and call other people. Your main objective should be, how do I get my phone to ring? You should spend 99% of your effort on doing exactly that. Doing that will separate you from the masses because everyone's under the same philosophy. They're under the same exact method, the same exact training from all of these different individuals spreading misinformation because they never did it themselves. The real answer is you need to get your phone to ring. And as soon as you can develop as far as monthly recurring revenue, that's when you actually become sustainable. And it took me a long time to understand this and learn this. Because yes, I have an influx of leads. I can confidently say that I can get 3+ people to talk to on autopilot every single day, and I can most likely sell one of them every single day if I really wanted to. But the question becomes, once you hit a certain point in whatever industry you are in, but in a service-based industry, there's always work associated with it. So your effort, no matter if you have a team, no matter, if you're doing everything yourself, the effort is going to be determined on delivering solid results to a client, and in return, you will then leverage your views to get furthermore. So that's why I've put a break on my own personal web design agency, is because I've done all the hard work. I know what it takes. I have so many leads at this point where I don't even want to reach out to them. I don't want the added stress mentally towards myself, because it's almost like you have RAM inside of your head. You have random access memory that's inside of a computer. And the more clients you have, that RAM stick starts to fill up. And that RAM stick is non-replaceable. So you have to be very careful with what information you do input into that. And that's why I say your subconscious brain has been marketed to from all these different individuals. They're simply putting out all this garbage information, and your RAM is becoming full. Now there's ways to decrease the amount of usage that you actually have. And that's what I'm saying. A service-based industry, it is difficult. Nevertheless, it is difficult. You are going to wear all of the hats at first, and you will continue to wear all of the hats. So that's why I created this YouTube channel, is because I feel confident at this point where I'm not some self-claimed, proclaimed guru. I've actually went through the trial and error myself, and I got beat up numerous times. I faced numerous rounds of rejection. I faced numerous rounds of failure, and I kept pushing through it all. And that's why I've developed the strategies and the methods and everything that I do have, is because it's unlike anything that is out there in the market, purely for the reason I focused, once I got to a certain point, on how do I get my phone to ring versus how do I ring others. That's why I don't do outreach. That's why I don't promote outreach. So with all that being said, I hope this video was very valuable to you. And if it wasn't, that's okay. To wrap things up, since we're at 29 minutes, and like I said, this is just raw. This is raw filtered. To wrap things up to the highest degree possible, I do want to see all of you guys succeed. There's Proverbs 27:17, which talks about iron sharpens iron. And I believe that's one of our main missions in this world, is to bring others to the next level. And once you are able to confidently do that, you can say that you've done something good in this world. So that's me being genuine, authentic with you guys. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.